Hey, welcome all. Coleman Report Live, Summer Solstice Edition. Brent Trellino, Senior Vice President with New Tech. Brent and I were just talking. Brent, you're sort of jet lagged. What time you're back from Spain? Welcome back.
Yes, thank you very much. It would be the evening. It'd be happy hour now.
Happy hour. Well, all right. Well, we're gonna have a great show then. Got a lot of stuff. Love having Brent come on. We try to get him on at least once a month and give us a little inside baseball behind the scenes. Lance is at an airport, so Lance is off today. Let's go to the poll questions. Number one, the reason why I'm asking these questions is I was back at America West last week, Brent. Lot of great information, and I strongly encourage you to attend these. We're going to put up the conferences later on right after this poll question, but they're very inexpensive. Oh, I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see 1/3 of you out there. And Joseph, bring them up. These are the conferences this summer. They're all over the country. Very inexpensive, great content, great networking. It's very important to meet your peers. Plus, the local SBA buys in. They bring in the local district directors, the local staff, as well as the national office, Brent.
Absolutely. I hit the NADCO and the recent NADCO conference too, and that was very good.
Yeah, in the fall, there's NADCO, NAGO, that we have other specialty ones that we're actually, when we put out our movers and shakers today, we'll be listing them all. But if you're anywhere near any of these places, Mashantucket, I guess, is in Connecticut. I guess.
The other thing I'd like to say is that for the first time, they're sending out, some of the I call them section chiefs, but the senior analysts are coming. So you're not just getting the head, director folks. You're getting people that are actually you're interfacing with and are doing things. So that's a real good. That's a real good benefit because you can talk directly to the oversight people that are dealing on the ground oversight.
And we don't have Mid-America on here. Mid-America was in the spring. They've announced it. I believe it's going to be down in Corpus Christi next May. We'll obviously do that. The great thing about Mid-America is you have 10 different, 11, 12 different district directors all at the same event. So if you're in that area. Anyway, I push these. I get nothing for that other than I think it's a great value for you. Hey, let's ask some more poll questions. Brent, this came up last week and SBA made a big deal about it. And so I'm asking our audience, is the first co-review by OCC and SBA of a bank a significant development for our industry?
It's a huge development.
No, Brent, now you're pulling a lance. You got to wait for the answers.
All right.
You can't taint the poll. Oh, way to go, Brent. Go ahead. Why is it a huge development? Did we lose Brent?
No, I'm here.
Go ahead. Now you can answer. The poll questions came in. 71% said yes.
70 answered. Yeah, I led the question.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Why is this a big deal? I
can just tell you that when I was there, director, we were working hard to get an interagency agreement. So I understand that there is some form of interagency letter or memorandum. I know we had one with FDIC. But in this case, they're very specific because I've been dealing with OCC by sitting on the board of Patriot Bank, that it's going to be conducted jointly. It's not. So I think the two teams are going to work together. It's not where it's a run by one group or one by the other. They're going to collaborate. So I think they're using the word joint. Review and see.
But what does this mean? I assume SBA is going to be offering expertise to the OCC and vice versa. So there's a collaboration between the two regulators. But what?
I think they're trying to also show both the strengths and weaknesses in SBA loans. But from my standpoint, there's always been some perception with some of the other prudential regulators that maybe SBA loans are poorer or weaker, and that's why the guarantee's there. And so there's some misconceptions by some rank and file examiners. And I think so if they can directly understand how SBA looks at it and what the guarantee, really stands for, and they can talk some about their Paris metrics and understand how they're using the risk management, it makes the regulator much more comfortable. They're not allowed to do that directly where the bank can give vice versa. OCC information can't go to SBA and SBA can't go to OCC, but we know there's both good information, both from the Camel side and the Paris side, that if they both knew what was going on, it might make it easier for that lender's audit, particularly if the lender has a really good SBA portfolio.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. That's a positive spin on that, and that's good to hear. I agree with you. If you have a good portfolio, you're going to be fine on these things. But the takeaway on this, and I'm going to have Brent expand on it a little bit later, the takeaway on this is SBA is definitely moving into regulatory environment. In fact, let's talk about that now, Brent. Bill Manger promised us last week in Rancho Mirage that SBA was going to be releasing the final rules on how they would be regulating us, and now they have new authority to fine, et cetera, pull PLP licenses. What is your understanding of where we are in that process, Brent?
He said the same, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks when we were at the NATCO conference, so I was expecting it due anytime, by 4th of July-ish time period or whatever. Okay. And that's based, a lot of it's based on that RIN, the notice that was put in, that's the new reg, which is very heavily oversight driven. I mean, there's a lot in there about loan agents and OCRA type items for that.
Brian, go ahead. Let's do a plug. You're going to be doing a webinar for us on July 10th talking about this. Tell us what you're going to be talking about.
Well, I think I want to kind of talk a little bit about, what the kind of things that oversight people are looking at, both SBA and OCC, and how to really kind of prepare and/or know the benefits of independent loan reviews or just an independent assessment of your SBA operation, and give you talk a little bit about the metrics, talk about Paris, talk about operations, because there's a lot more discussion about governance, annual business plans for your department, even if you're a bank. Some of the things that have done in the non-bank area, the regulators like to see that there's a comprehensive plan. Internal control policies is becoming a very important part, because is there a correlation between your bank's internal control policies and the control policies you have for SBA?
I know a couple of years ago, one of the first things SBA asked for when they did their on-site reviews is, hey, where's your credit policy for SBA? And a lot of lenders went, we don't have one.
Well, and then, you got to look in the last year or so, you've had indictments on some loan agents. You've got a lot of fraud in giving your publication a shout out. You print your Fraud Fridays, and you're seeing that there's a lot of activity coming to fruition now over poor oversight, poor governance, or poor procedures.
And that's why we're here. Some bad actors are making all of our lives difficult. And Brent, I'm really looking forward to that presentation, because it's going to outline very clearly what we need to know.
And I think you need to pay attention that OCRM has some new teeth, and they have some tools in their tool chest to do enforcement things, restrictions to secondary market, restricting your PLP authorities, fining. So there's some certain things that come out in the last couple of
market. I mean, all these things.
The last couple of conferences, Susan Strike and her team have been very clear that there's activities that they're going to be afforded that are going to make compliance an important part of the program, which it always has been. But
yeah, that's great. I'm really looking forward to that. I think we're releasing that today. Anyway, make sure you take advantage of that. Hey, I'm a big fan of this. The numbers were amazing. To use SBA's lender match, what they were saying in Rancho Mirage is there's been 200,000 transactions completed on this since this has been instituted. The date's better than me. It's been 3 or 4 years for him. 4.5 million emails. Brent, at our BDO summit, which you were there, one of the BDOs has been very successful on pouring through these leads. Now, if you do the math, $4.5 million leads and 200,000 is about 1 in 20, but that 1 in 20 may not have gotten done without SBA's lender match. And I'm glad to see 56% of the people use it. Also, Brent, I don't know if you know about this, but there was a tease that they're going to make it more streamlined for the lender to use. I don't know how much you were involved with that.
Well, one thing, I'll give NewTek a plug. They use it heavily because it helps them as a non-bank lender get to those loans under 350 and even smaller, down to 50,000. Because I've been, going through the credit committees and such. Secondly, I had a chance to talk with Steve Kucharski, who's really trying, and with the support of Bill Menger, really trying to get the technology so this thing works a lot smoother.
Yeah,
I just, to be humoristic, though, I hope he doesn't decide to start charging us for it.
That's scratch.
But it does cost money for them to do this.
What Brett said.
I do. I think that we should appreciate that SBA is trying to do that, and they still are keeping it free.
What I was intrigued about also is they're trying to do some sort of expedited processing on this because there's already data there, and they're working on through E-Tran that if it comes through Lenders Match, they'll try to get you an expedited approval if you're going to process at GP. So that's they're working on it. There's enhancements. I think it's lenders who I've talked to. Yeah, 1 in 20. That's a lot of work. But you know what? If you can find a good quality borrower relationship and make someone's dreams come true through this, good for you and a good asset for the bank.
It's working for us at Newtek. So
the final question is: if you looked at my podcast that were released yesterday, Natalie Orta, the district manager of Rancho Mirage, pushed the local SBDCs as a great resource for you. And so I'd just like to know how many of you are working with your local SBDCs? I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see that 2/3. She made a big push that SBDCs are a great resource, especially if you have someone come in and then they're a startup and they're, our time is all valuable and you want to be sensitive, but instead of just saying, no, we're not going to do your startup restaurant, you say, you know what, go talk to Brent over at this SBDC and they'll work with you. And she made a big push. They'll prepare the package for fee. They'll work with your projections. They have a lot of great seminars. And so if you have, quote, a newbie who wants to get a loan, that's where you send them, and they have the resources and the professionals to be able to hold these people's hand, mentor them, and try to make it work. Well, what is that? Are you?
What?
What is the thunderstorm in the background? Hey, let's go to the America West talking points.
It's a helicopter here in Washington.
Oh, the helicopter. All right. I love it. New SOPs are going to be out. And I apologize I repeated this last week, but I just wanted to, these are the main talking points. 5057 is going to be out in the fall. Now online processing, you can go down if someone needs to be cleared on the 912, instead of getting the physical fingerprints, they can go on and they can be done electronically and forwarded. As they say, that reduces the clearance time from 30 days to about 2 to 4 days. And we talked about what we're talking about, the regulatory. This came from the Small Business Oversight Reform Act of 2018. We're waiting for that. And finally, and this is something Lance and I hammer, and I know Brent does, failure to address credit memo. Credit elsewhere in the credit memo is a reason for denial of guarantee. That came directly from Vanessa Piccioni, the head of Herndon. If it's not in that credit memo, by definition, it's an ineligible loan, right, Brent?
Yes, and I've been recommending to lenders if they would like to come up with a separate rider or supplement to specifically document that credit elsewhere. Yes. That's been received very well by the review teams at SBA.
Yeah, and what Bob Carpenter said is that as long as you address it, you're going to be fine. Where lenders are getting themselves in trouble is they're not even addressing it. So just address it, give some sort of justification, and you will be okay.
I also know that they are working on new SOPs for Okram.
Yes, and that's going to be coming out. Yeah, we'll do. Yeah. Hey, I want to follow up on the discussion we had last week. I don't think Brent was part of it, but on SBA loan splitting, I got a nice email to put this into context. And he said, I'd like to give you a little background. In 2010, prior to SBA raising the loan limit to $5 million, brokers requested Grady Hedgesmith to allow the secondary to be able to split the loans on multiple loans to the secondary market. At Nagel in October 2010, the secondary market committee was informed that no decision had been made, but SBA telegraphed that they could do that. And that was told to 4 lenders. And if you look at those lender stats, they did telegraph it. Now, they did that for about 4 years with the quasi-blessing of SBA, where basically SBA said, no, we're not going to allow that. Be prudent. And in 2016, Linda Ruschi said, hey, stop doing that. We don't like it. Now, this person did say they only charged 1 closing cost and 1 packaging for all. I think if he did a $5 million loans, he's talking about splitting up into 4 loans. So even though it's not codified, it is frowned upon, Brent.
Yes.
And what is your thinking what the current agency position is?
It's just that it's something that's preferred that the lenders not do. And I'm sure they're going to address that as they go forward, but it just opens you up for potential questions and further scrutiny.
Yeah. Now, I think the exposure that you have is if you charge, please, if you did 4 loans, please don't charge 4 packaging fees. I think you're opening yourself for heavy scrutiny. And as this person said, we were able to realize a higher income on the secondary market, but we only charged it as if it was 1 loan. So that is certainly prudent. I don't think he will be criticized at all. And Paul gives a great question, Brent, is they're looking to buy a loan portfolio. We talked about the new oversight rules. Let's move to the thing and let's go to the question. Yeah, there we go. And Brent, what do you advise? I know you buy portfolios. We did that. We're buying a portfolio and we're sort of sketchy on documentation. There's no credit elsewhere documentation. There's no certificates of debarment, lobbying. Do we need to go back and have the borrower sign these forms?
Just as a general rule, just looking at it, first you determine how many loans are over 18 months and how many are under 18 months. That way you can get around and discuss equity injection and use of proceeds. And then you start looking at some of that other, documentation. And I know something that's simple, but are the files organized into the 10-tab format, from square one? And from that, it's a lot easier to see that the loan is organized. So those are some things that are simple, easy things to kind of look at.
Is it permissible for the lender to address all of these, date it today, and say, hey, as of today, this is what we see? Is that permissible, Brent?
I guess they can call that a cutoff date and say that, yes, that's the way it is.
Yeah, we went back and this is our credit elsewhere determination and this is what we found out.
Oh, absolutely. If you're asking me, can you go back and look at loans that have already been done and want to supplement your credit elsewhere? Absolutely.
Yeah, but
that's why they're pushing. That's why certain folks are pushing independent loan reviews to come in and say, hey, I think when you get a review, you're going to need to have more support here. So SBA is fine with you going back and acknowledging. That's why they want you to continually review your portfolio.
Yeah, and the theme is as long as you address it, you're making good faith, prudent lender to say, hey, this wasn't here, but in our review of this credit memo, this is why we believe credit elsewhere is satisfied, et cetera, et cetera. You're making good faith effort. Where lenders get themselves in troubles is where they ignore.
Correct. You can always go back. Listen, look at what SBA will do. They'll give you a matter requiring attention, and then you're going to have to do a.
Gentlemen, Brent seems to have frozen. Have we lost him?
I think so.
Or have we lost me? Oh, well, let's get him back on. Let's go. While we're doing that, let me talk about Maggie Cook. And please take a look at my podcast that I did yesterday. This is her book, a great read. And I talked about it, I believe, last week, but definitely in the podcast. She started, she was in an orphanage in Mexico. She got a basketball scholarship in the United States. And she's an SBA lender. She got a loan from SunTrust Bank, and she sold her company that she started for $800 for $231 million to Campbell's Food. So please take a look at my interview with her and my podcast. Also, we ran a little interview of her company. It's just a great, great SBA borrower story that we should all embrace. What's going on with Lance, guys? I mean, with Brent. I keep calling him Lance.
Here I am.
There you are. Welcome back. I don't know. Have you heard about this lady, Maggie Cook?
Yeah, I actually saw her live.
Yeah, just great story. I did an interview with her. She's in our podcast. Great, great story.
I believe she actually used the SBDC too.
Yes, and SBDC walked her through the process.
Right.
SunTrust Bank made her $250,000 7A loan. I mean, these are the type of stories we need to get out there as an industry to confront the fraud stories that someone writes about on Fraud Friday. Let's go back to the budget. Any update that you know about the budget, Brent?
The only thing I know is I believe something has gone on the Senate side where they're going with the $99 million, and I don't think there's a problem. I don't know what's happening. When I say I don't know there's a problem, I think they're trying to go forward to make sure there's the ability for the program to not have any interruption. I don't know what's happening on the House
I'm
side.
still on record. I don't know what the solution is. We're not going to close down October 1st. There will be some sort of solution.
Yeah.
We may not like it in terms of there may be a little bit bump in the fees. When Brent and I were at the Senate, they were talking about a temporary solution, long-term solution. There will be a solution, and we'll follow this more as we get closer through these appropriations and through the floor votes and whatever. These things are in flux, and they will change. What do we got next, gentlemen? We talked about those.
Hey, can I just make sure the question from Paul that I got logged out there or whatever and got back in? That was that Form 1846, the statement regarding lobbying, that it needs to be signed by the lender.
Okay.
I didn't know if we had answered that directly, but that's to be signed by the lender.
I appreciate that. We're starting our summer training July 1. Please take advantage of that. These are our online 8-week trainings, 10 weeks trainings, and we're doing closer underwriting, and those are the two primary ones. Lance and I are going to do all these when the new 50-50-10-6 comes out. But these are great courses. We give a nice plaque. We do it right. We do reading assignments, homework assignments, quizzes, and Lance, a second-year award in a row, won an award for this. So good for him. And these are our webinars. We plugged what Brent's going to do. Lance is doing a litigation wrap-up report on June 26th. Hey, Brent, it was interesting. Vanessa said the lenders are doing pretty well in getting these loans wrapped up within 2 years, but she still said there's a number that are outstanding. But she said if you have a loan that hasn't been wrapped up within 2 years, get an extension, address it, let them know what's going on. Her other item was if it's a small amount, and it may be it's on SBA's books, but you've charged it off but didn't let SBA know about it. If it's a small amount, Lance and I were discussing whether that's $5,000 or $10,000. I'm going to ask your opinion. Simply send them a memo, an email, and they'll take care of it. What's your definition of a small amount?
I think that's good, 5,000 or 10,000. I don't know what the answer would be today, but if it's pretty much immaterial based on the size of the loan.
Yeah, if you're $6,000, you don't have to go through.
But you do bring up a good point that sometimes the bank is not aware that the SBA's inventory may be higher than the inventory on the bank of the SBA's loan list because the bank has charged it off and SBA still hasn't.
Yeah,
so that's another reason to get your data pack off of your portal and see what your inventory is to see if you have some stragglers, I call them.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, go to the Paris scores and do that. Hey, two quick questions, Brent. For Brent, from a relatively newbie to the industry, you talked about setting up loan files. Which 10-tab system should our files emulate?
The 10 tabs in the SOP.
Now, do it as for the PDK as if you're going to be sending it in.
As if you're going to be sending it in for the guarantee.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
Right.
Susie Granger, DRDA, shout out to Susie. Hey, Brent, I think Susie's we're in heavy negotiations for her being a sponsor of some of our Coleman stuff. So anyway, Mid-America is in 2020 in Clear Lake, Texas. I have no idea where Clear Lake, Texas is other than it's at a lake, April 20 to 22nd. So I think it's Houston. That's right. It's Houston. So I spoke on that. Obviously, don't make your plane reservations until we confirm that. Hey, I'm always looking for quality writers. If you know anybody who wants a little internship, have them send me an email. We'll talk about that. And with that, Brent, thank you so much for joining us. And this concludes the Coleman Report Live.
Bye-bye.